to call to order the regular monthly business meeting for June 5th, 2026 for the Island Transit Board of Directors. Do a quick roll call. I see Craig Sear. I see Leela online. Did Janet join us online? Okay, yeah. And in the room, we have Commissioners Bacon and Johnson, and we are missing James P. Merrow.
And they're both expected.
Okay, well, I will report back if they do come in person, but we do have
You do.
we have a quorum. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to take a moment and do math. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the agenda? Any comments, changes? I'd like to add one item after the reports. We will be adding an executive session. I'm going to add this item to discuss with legal counsel litigation or potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101I. And so may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Welcome, Commissioner St. Clair. Let's see. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any discussion?
We amended the consent agenda to include.
It always tells me I'm supposed to ask for comments after. No?
We didn't amend it. We didn't amend it. It's just as presented.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was clarifying is I asked something.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Now is the time for public input and comment. This time is reserved for members of the public to address the board on matters of concern or interest or on items not scheduled for public hearing. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The chair may end or modify public comment if remarks become disruptive or are not relevant to business before the board. Matters requiring more extensive input should be submitted in writing. Do we have any public comments from in the room? Any public comments from online? And they're able to, yeah. Okay.
None.
Okay. Hearing none, we will close the public input and comment section and move on to our business items. Business item number 1, authorization to reschedule the September 4th, 2026 meeting. And I will turn it over to Executive Director Adams.
Good morning. We are requesting 2 date changes for 2 upcoming meetings in 2026. We would like to change our September 4th, 2026 board meeting to September 11th, 2026 to accommodate the Labor Day holiday. And we would like to change our October 2nd, 2026 meeting to October 9th of 2026 to achieve a quorum. It is during this time in September and October that we have a 5-week break that many times our commissioners have that opportunity to take. And so because it is a budget, it'll be the first draft of the budget for 2027. We're requesting to change it to October 9th.
Any discussion? Thoughts?
Oh, great.
Craig? Councilperson's here.
Yes, I have no problem with the September reschedule. The October 9th schedule could be difficult for me. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to attend the meeting. I will be away from my house, and I'm not sure if I'll have cell coverage. So I'm just not sure if I can make that meeting.
Any other conflicts? We still have quorum. Let me let that leave there.
I mean, I understand the fifth week problem and it does impact three of us, which makes quorum nearly impossible, or we have to give up that fifth week, which is pretty much the only time that the board gets off. Not to
Totally
be
makes
dramatic,
sense.
but that's the week we get. So, with that in mind, I would make am I making a motion here or we're just head nodding?
Make a motion.
I'm making a motion to authorize to schedule the September 4th, 2026 meeting to September 11th, 2026, and the October 2nd meeting to October 9th. Start time and locations are unchanged. That's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second
Just
to
want to get on this.
reschedule the September 4th and October 2nd, board meetings. Any other discussion?
And my apologies to Craig Sear. It's not a.
Okay. No, I'm voting in favor. I'm voting in favor. I'm just not sure if I'll be able to make
It wasn't
the
a
October
normal
9th meeting.
thing. Okay.
Understood. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Business item number 2 is discussion of the authorization to purchase 11 24-foot gasoline fueled light duty buses through the local sales tax revenue. And I will hand this over to our procurement specialist, Nate Burns. Oh,
Yes.
who is standing up there? Hello there.
Hello. Yes, I'm up here to ask for the authorization to purchase 11 24-foot gasoline fueled light duty buses through local sales tax revenue not to exceed the amount of $2,786,896. This has already been approved in our 2026 budget, and this is in accordance with our 25 to 2030 transit development plan. Are there any questions?
Can you talk us through how you settled on this size budget or bus, this type of bus? Can you just talk us through how we landed on these buses?
Yeah, absolutely. For that, I'll pass it off to my maintenance staff, to give you more specifics.
So these buses would mirror, the 9 that we purchased last year, that were part of 2 separate grants. I believe the board was able to step aboard them and look at them once they had arrived. They were a 24-foot para size bus, but they had a reader board and, accommodated seating for 14 passengers. We felt they were a good middle of the road for seating capacity as well as ADA acceptance because it could seat 5 wheelchairs or 14 passengers, any combination thereof.
And those
Join the meeting.
And those 9 buses we bought, those are working out. We don't have any regrets over those buses, wishing we bought something else.
Not that I've been made aware of.
So these are 11 buses. Are these 11 buses replacing anything in our current inventory, or are we adding 11 buses to our total number of buses?
They would all be replacement. They would replace, a majority of it would be current para-sized buses, similar 24-foot in length, but they only seat about 8 people. Some of them are as old as 2012.
Could you bring the ER&R plan when you bring these requests to us, so we see where the buses are, where we are in placement? Because that was my big question is, I'm doing this in absence of data on where we are in our fleet. What is the average age? I mean, this is a make sense kind of decision, but it's in absence of the data that the board should have about where is our fleet, what needs to be replaced, how old, I think we did some of the 9 last year to replace those, if I recall correctly, and that is becoming an increasingly challenging exercise for me. But I do think what we were doing then was playing a little bit of catch up on vehicles that were well past their due date, right?
So yeah, last year when we replaced, 3 of them were replacement and 6 of them were expansion. The 6 expansion were kind of catch up. The 3 replacements were replacing 3 medium-sized 2013 buses, which had been down for an extended period of time.
So that would be my request every time we bring a future request, is we have the ER9. My second question is, I don't have a philosophical, but I do have an economic question with gas at $5 a gallon. Where are we with this part of our fleet versus EV buses? And the cost of fuel and the long range recapture that we were seeing is.
Well, look at
You want me to answer this?
I want somebody to answer what's going on with gas in the.
Yeah, well, why don't you address the gas portion of the question, then I'll address the
Right now,
gas.
the EV vehicles that they have in a small cutaway
Yeah,
do not fit the topography of Island County.
because of,
We have, for these vehicles, we have too much egress and, the driveways.
The
all
ups and
different-
downs.
The ups and downs of the topography. So they do not make a cutaway bus right now as an EV that has anything more than 7 inches of ground clearance.
okay,
The maximum we can allow in a minimum rate is 9 inches.
okay, so that's a
So
functional reason.
functional reason
That's
why
very
we have
helpful.
stayed away from that aspect of it.
And are we seeing, and should we be talking about the inflation rate on gas, how that's hitting our budget at some point and other places where that might be a financial decision
So,
we should
The
consider?
vehicles, these 9 that we have right now are
Yeah.
averaging about 8.8, 8.9 miles to the gallon.
Okay.
If we did the math for the EVs, the most we could get, so these vehicles would get roughly about 400 miles to a tank of fuel. If we did that in an EV, we would have to double the amount of EVs if they made the ground clearance
Because of the range.
because of the range. There is nothing in the EV world in that scenario that can get over 100 miles. So it's just not feasible for us to even attempt going after this.
Okay.
And Melinda, didn't you say, sorry, was I interrupting? No. Didn't you say something about for paratransit, the EV is not,
There was no hybrid electric option.
okay, all right.
Correct. And so I just wanted to go back and address your comment briefly, and I am happy, staff is happy to bring the replacement schedule to these meetings. I do want to point out that that was brought with the budget, so
Yeah.
that you all approved it with that information, no problem. But that it's already approved in the budget. We did utilize the replacement plan at that time when the board approved, but we can bring it both times. This particular action is because it's over my signing authority, which is why we're bringing it back to the board.
100%, and he referenced it's in our plan. I knew, I
Yeah.
just,
No, no problem.
not to be kind of like, this is not the right metaphor, but you know, it's the trust and verify and make sure that I'm not
Absolutely.
remembering things
Sure.
that are dependent on my ability to remember it, when we should be verifying to make sure that it's in our ER&R. And you referenced it, but we should be able to reference it as well. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you did reference that.
Great.
Any further questions?
Yes.
Okay.
A question for Will. I assume the information you gave us about the clearance also applies to any hybrid vehicles that are out there, and maybe there aren't any out there. Just curious.
So are you asking about like the Gillig buses and stuff, the hybrid? Is that what you're asking about?
You'd have to differentiate fixed route from.
Okay, yeah, those are a fixed route bus versus a Paris style bus.
Okay.
We, as of right now, anything that we deal with in Para has a lot of right-of-way issues, a lot of getting into some of the elderly facilities, stuff like that, where these areas, kind of like Cannon Bay right here in Coopville, a lot of our buses, even at 9 inches, will drag going through there and they will damage the bottom sides of the buses. So we let the drivers know that they have to come in at an angle. It's still sometimes that doesn't work because if somebody's coming out, they have to go straight forward into it. So we have to deal with those scenarios. So
No, there are no hybrid buses that meet your requirements, right?
for the cutaway side of the fleet, for anything that's a fixed route bus that runs up and down the island, we do not have the scenarios where the bus has to go up into a driveway or into that. They don't never get to that point, so.
So I guess, well, it specifically for the paratransit 24-footers, there is not a hybrid option.
No, there's not that fits our scenario. No, there's not.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any other questions for me or anyone else? Motion?
I move to authorize the purchase of 11 24-foot gasoline fueled light duty buses through local sales tax revenue not to exceed the amount of $2,786,896 as approved in the 2026 budget and in accordance with the 2025-2030 transit development plan.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve authorization of the purchase of the 11 24 vehicles. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nate. I have a quick question for Michael before we move on to the next item. As a follow-up to Commissioner St. Clair's comment, so on your master list of all of the vehicles, I know you've got useful life and kind of a forecast of replacement. With what frequency would it be appropriate to kind of maybe discuss or present that? You know, because I know we talk about it at budget,
You know, we have.
but is there any other time frame that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a good time to do that because that replacement schedule is also included a state required component of it.
Okay, I just wanted to throw it out there, and then, because I know we talk about it and then these kinds of things come back, but I wasn't sure. So, okay. Let's see, business item number 3, introduction to the Island Transit Artificial Intelligence Governance Policy. Before I turn it over to, Dr. Chigley, I'm gonna hand the mic over to our executive director first to do some introductions on this topic.
So, as we're all aware, artificial or AI, as it's referred to, is here to stay. And over the last year, it has been a topic discussion amongst our risk pool provider, legal counsel, and our partner transit agencies, amongst many, many other people in the world, right? People and our employees are using it every day, even when they don't know they're using it. If they're using Siri, if they're doing Google searches, asking questions, they're likely using AI. As a public agency, it is critical that we establish guardrails to ensure protection for the agency. This is a huge undertaking. We are going to approach the AI policy by breaking it down over the next 3 months with the board. Today, we'll have a brief introduction of the topic from our IT director, Chris Chidley. And at the end of our meeting, you'll receive a draft copy of the policy that has been vetted. I want to say a draft copy of the policy vetted by Matt to review and comment over the next month. In July, we'll have a considerable and robust discussion on the policy itself, and then address any questions that you have at that time as well. If we are ready by August, we'll be asking the board to take action. But we want to kind of break this down over the next 3 months because it is a huge topic. And with that, I will hand it off to Mr. Chidley.
Morning, everyone.
I'll say your name.
Oh, you're fine. So artificial intelligence, AI, it is a fast moving technology. Is probably the fastest technology I've seen in the 27 years I've been working with technology. It's fascinating to watch from a cautious perspective, what transpires with AI. A new version comes out every few weeks. So the power every time that the new version comes out is exponential. It is, of course, bleeding edge. And the rules around that are still being formed as well. Compliance is something that we always have to follow in a public agency like ours. And it is still evolving with AI constantly. New guidance comes out from various security frameworks every few weeks, including the state and federal level. When people When people hear AI, they often think of the common chatbot. And that's a fair starting point. The thing that you want to focus on mostly today with this policy is something called generative AI, which is kind of goes hand in hand with the chatbot. These are tools that can be used to help draft documents. They can help do research. They can review and summarize larger documents and help you digest that information easily. They can help refine procedures. They can help accelerate work that used to take weeks of work and half that time. And sometimes you can do weeks of work in a few hours. The fun fact here, this AI policy was, AI helped draft this policy. It allowed us to conflict of interest. Yep. It allowed us to combine state regulations, federal regulations, peer agency policies, as well as cybersecurity frameworks that are out there today that are giving us guidance on how to form policy. Don't be afraid. The policy has been reviewed by a human, at least one, and Matt has also reviewed this as well. Yep. As our legal counsel. So it's important to know that even drafting a policy, we are still keeping humans in the loop. And I'll talk about that in a second. So obviously any policy we would bring, we would have legal review, even if we didn't use AI, we're not. We've already talked a little bit about the timeline. So this is an introduction today. So there's no action needed. Next slide, please. All right, so AI tools are already in use everywhere, as Melinda mentioned, from search engines to email to the document tools we use every day. Agencies like ours and other entities are moving quickly to adopt them. Many of the tools we already pay for and use today, such as Microsoft Word, Adobe Acrobat, Canva, any tools out there that you might use are baking AI into them already. The challenge is without clear rules, staff members are making individual decisions about what's appropriate to say or use with AI. One person might paste information into a public chatbot without realizing the risk involved. Another might rely on AI generated answers at its full face value and not verify that. Those individual decisions multiplied across the whole agency provides a real risk that we need to address. The policy is built around 3 pillars. We have protect the agency, meet our obligations, and keep humans in charge of decisions that matter. Human in the loop. I'll probably say that a few more times during the presentation because that's one of the most important things about this. Everything else in the document flows from these 3 pillars. I want to emphasize right now, we're getting ahead of this proactively. We're not responding to an incident that's already happened, and we're not clearing up after a problem. This is a much stronger position to be in today than it would be if we were responding to that. It also shows some good credibility for our agency in moving forward. AI is not theoretical anymore. Cybersecurity, federal and state compliance, public records, vendor agreements all touch how we use AI tools today and how we will use them in the future. The work we're doing now puts a framework in place so that as AI continues to evolve, we have a foundation to build on rather than recreate it every time a new tool comes out. Next slide. Number 1 right there, you see it, human in the loop. So this is the most important one, and I want you to remember it above everything else in this policy. Human in the loop, you might hear it in the industry called HITL as the abbreviation. It's basically says AI never makes a final decision. Employees always review and take full responsibility for what they produce and release. AI is a tool that helps us work faster. It is never the one signing off on anything. We need to stop and discern when we're creating documents, just like we would if we did it without AI, because AI will not think for you. You have to still think. Human in the loop. Everybody got that one? Human in the loop, HITL. All right. Then we have privacy protection. That's the next big one. Very important as well. No confidential or sensitive data is input into AI. A few specifics. HIPAA information, that should be kind of common sense, but it's called out in the policy. Cannot use any personal identifiable information, home addresses, social security numbers, credit card numbers, the common stuff you wouldn't put in a Google search. So that's kind of the rule of thumb that I tell people when we're introducing AI. If you wouldn't put it in a Google search, don't put it in AI. Transparency. That means that when we create something with AI, that we are transparent about that. We're going to do attribution. So we strongly encourage, if you create a policy, down at the bottom, there's a little footer that says helped with, yeah, so this is a great example. This document was crafted with AI assistance. The content was reviewed and edited by Chris Chidley, IT Director, Island Transit, and Legal before publication. So that is a perfect example of attribution on any document that's going to be official.
Why does that matter?
When it's something official, like a policy, it might mean something to some people to know that AI was used in crafting that, because then you take a different lens at that. So instead of taking it at face value, when I go to Matt and I say, hey, I've used Anthropic Claude to create this policy, he might go, okay, so I'm looking for things that could have been construed in the wrong way, worded a different way than say if I wrote that policy.
Why would it be important externally for someone to know that? So I understand if you're like, hey, can you review this? I use this tool to help me develop it. It may or may not have our right lens. Can you look at it and make sure this is right? So I get that kind of warning. Why would it be important to tell the public necessarily that AI was a part of the development if it's a human adopted policy?
I hear what you're saying. So the attribution is recommended. So
By AI or by?
no. By the policy. So if we're doing social media posting, we don't need to put on a blurb on every social media posting that AI was helped create this, because we're trying to streamline the communication. Images created for social media, things like that can go out so long as a human is in the loop. So that's the most important thing about the policy. The attribution or transparency uses a little bit further. So it's, in some cases, it's nice to know, but it's not a requirement in the policy. But that is a common practice coming out for a lot of agencies out there. Then some agencies are forcing attribution on any document that is released to the public.
Would you say it helps to let the public know about our transparency?
Yeah.
It's a way to live.
But that is that's kind of the policy question to decide if you want it in or out, from a legal point of view.
Well, it builds a certain measure of confidence if we declare it, if it's claimed on the document that AI was helpful or used. Because I know the general public would be wondering, is this consuming AI perfectly responsible for this, but you put on there that humans signed off on it.
And I would not be comfortable if I used AI to craft something and it wasn't like reviewed in that lens, and then find out later that I didn't attribute it and somebody found out and then got really upset about that.
Well, we're gonna have our policy conversation about it later, right?
Sure.
So I don't have to fight to the death right now.
No,
No.
we're gonna have a huge discussion into the law.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll have a couple deadlines here, not, soft deadlines that you can get questions to me. And then at some point, I'm going to respond to those questions. And please bring that up as one of the questions.
I actually don't have a strong opinion. I had never thought about it, but my instinct is exactly the opposite. So that's where I was like, well, we're gonna have time to discuss it. Like my instinct is, don't tell the public how much we rely on AI, because the public doesn't like to pay people on tax dollars. So their first thought is gonna be like, well, I'll just hire that computer. I don't need those people, right? So maybe educate them a little less on our what we can do with that.
Yeah.
But that's a different instinct, so I just wanna make sure we have time to like flush all that out.
Yeah, there's, go ahead.
I just have a quick question, exactly for Matt. So on the attribution requirement or whatever we decide, it's much like any sort of citations that somebody would provide in a document. You're just giving credit.
So you're right.
Okay, so and I do the same thing. When something is cited, I was like, oh, do I align with that? And I've got to kind of figure out where that came from. So that's the way that I've always looked at it, but it could be different.
Yeah, well, it's also in that accreditation or the attribution or attribution.
It's a weird word.
When we're talking about, say, legal review, it's nice to know that it's had legal review,
Okay,
you know?
yeah.
So to me, it kind of goes hand in hand with when you say you're gonna have legal review, you've helped AI, it's been reviewed by these people, it's showing that we've had human in the loop in that. Now, the thing about AI is I don't feel like AI is gonna replace people. It's gonna allow people to be more effective at what they already do.
I just don't like to credit it because it's making me a lot smarter at work and I don't want to tell you. I want people to be like, oh, she's smart. Yes, I am. Because I got a computer to tell me how to think now.
Yeah.
We already.
It's, you already knew it was confusing.
So,
Yeah, I
Commissioner St. Clair.
yes.
It's a context question, because I think the policy questions are later, but we have an internal protocol question, which says anything generated by AI should be reviewed by X, Y, and Z. That's an internal protocol. The attribution, we don't attribute our internal protocols to everything we do. So we just have to have an internal protocol. And then we have to have an attribution statement that says this has been reviewed according to protocol.
Mhm.
Do you understand my?
Yeah, and
It's more
actually,
generic.
I've been working with Chris on policy versus procedures because this is fluid, and so we don't want to be coming to the board all the time. So that might be something we do move.
Right.
Yeah, the more general to the policy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then my second question is context. So when we're putting out a message to the public and we're saying, hey, public, this is our message, and we're using AI to generate how we're talking externally. That's one use of AI. AI is a tool in some places can be helpful, but we have to go down the rabbit trail of sources. But do we want our engineers and our mechanics to be telling us how to repair a diesel vehicle?
That's actually coming up in the next
Okay,
slide.
because
We-
there's internal and external AI policy and how it gets used. So, okay,
Yeah.
you're gonna get me there.
Yeah. So,
Cause I don't.
I'm sorry, Chris, one more question.
yeah,
Because there's an exponential increase in information. And I really had two questions with regard to AI. Is it impacting our ability to use the information technology systems through the bandwidth and storage processing because of the vast increases in electrical use and so forth? But also I want to say just from white collar crime background, my knowledge on these things is that we want to be cautious about saying a human in the loop. Because you're saying, well, really, what human? So what I'm stating is we want to give the omni and say any human that has access to the system and give approvals and sign off on something is therefore infallible or to correct AI.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying we need to be mindful of the fact that just putting a human in the loop is not in itself a guarantee of integrity.
yeah, and that hints towards what AI is being used for. And what we're dealing with here is more documenting or document crafting, reviewing documents, reviewing notes, bringing large amounts of data together to review. We're not talking about automating systems. We're not talking about tying into our server infrastructure, our HVAC, our vehicles or anything like that. In fact, in the policy, it forbids us from using it for those purposes. So anything that is safety sensitive requires a person to do that, not AI, not giving any automation.
I'm good about putting a human in the loop. I'm just reminding you about humans. Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like if I create a policy, I want some of my peers to review that.
Right.
That to me is the human in the loop. So
Right.
it's you know what I'm saying?
I
So-
understand the concept.
Any other questions before I move on?
We're good. Thank
Okay.
you. Celine's been checking online for me.
Okay. Okay, so the other three pillars, I'll just cover them real quick. Fair and equitable, accountable staff, and lawful and compliant round out the framework. They make sure we monitor for bias, that employees own what they sign and publish, and that we stay aligned with state and federal requirements.
I have another question. Sorry.
Yes.
I know, but I get so curious. How would the bias show up in a computer program? The way you ask the questions could bring out a bias, or how would you get a bias from AI?
The big thing about AI is how it's trained,
Okay,
and
so
it's
how-
trained off of previous content. So,
You're feeding it.
Got
and
it.
I don't want to get off in the weeds here, but if you took AI and trained it on Fox News, CNBC, or CNN, you're gonna get different chatbots out of that. So,
Okay,
the
that makes sense.
yeah, the idea is to use all of it and make sure there's no bias that leans one way or the other.
Okay.
Because we do not discriminate, we are completely equitable, and we want to maintain that way. So a lot of companies that are coming out with AI are starting to do what's called algorithmic intent analysis. And they make statements that say their AI is not biased and will not produce a biased response. And those are some of the things in the procedural document that I'm going to talk about that we double check for when we are subscribing to any AI, whether it's baked into a product we have now, or if it's a full-fledged AI that we're going to use by itself. All right. To St. Clair's response, we have who uses it and what's approved. So, where are we at here? So the basic meat and potatoes of who can use it is more for administrative staff, operational staff and IT, and not so much for mechanics, and people working on safety sensitive type things. So dispatchers won't necessarily have this, mechanics aren't necessarily gonna have this. But if they were to do a Google search, if you've seen in Google, a lot of AI responses are coming out of Google, that's completely open and permissible because it's basically doing a Google search, and it's just completely research, non-nefarious data. You're just doing some research. Right now we have a pilot program. We currently have 15 staff members actively working in the company Anthropic, their product called Claude. Since January of 2026 as part of a structured pilot program that helped me understand how we can craft this policy to work for our agency. The pilot includes representatives from across the agency, IT, admin, operations support, and leadership. Each participant has reviewed and signed an acceptable use document before being granted access to Anthropic Claude. A copy of that agreement will be included in the policy packet that we hand out after the presentation, so you get an idea of what everybody's been agreeing to and what they are not supposed to be doing. Claude is currently our primary approved generative AI platform. After doing a bunch of research between the big two, which is Anthropic Claude and OpenAI, it was obviously to me that Claude was privacy centric for a much lower entry point for the amount of users and the amount of money you need to spend. The entry point provided content downloadability, so we can keep ourselves compliant for public records by downloading the content from Claude. Whereas OpenAI, you'd have to have an enterprise account and a lot of users and a whole bunch of money to do, and that's just I'm trying to spend a large sum of money on this stuff.
I'm sorry, I have to stop you. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
I'm who I am.
Yeah.
Why would a AI search or AI results be public record requestable beyond, like, if you produce a document, I understand that is, but like my Google searches, I don't think anybody's ever asked for my Google search. So why wouldn't you need a public record policy around?
The search terms have been deemed public records.
Real, even on your Google, they could search?
I was just at a presentation in Philadelphia, Terrence's home, we had an AI presentation, and the city of Bellingham wasn't a transit agency, but they were kind of the spotlight feature, or someone in Bellingham was caught putting into AI, draft an RFP so that XYZ company will not qualify.
Well, they
So,
were fine.
We
on
talked
that.
about that for about 45 minutes.
So I want to clarify one thing. It's a very, very, very good point. Google searching, I would not put something like that in Google search.
And they say, we talked about 45 minutes ago. So a lot of things not to do on that.
So what's important to delineate here is searching. Transically searching is just research. Research itself is not necessarily fully in the public disclosure domain. Now, in a chatbot, your conversation with a chatbot, because it can lead down paths where you're asking loaded questions to get the response you want from it, that is public disclosure.
Interesting. Okay.
So,
Yeah, so the public records part is, as a lawyer, that's what's keeping me up at night, because there's some bigger transit agencies are using AI in a security function where they're accessing, say, things like surveillance cameras. And all of that is potential public records, and you're getting requests, and there's gonna have to be some regulation and refinement under the Public Records Act, because the way it's drafted right now is in a different universe of what's coming and what's already out there.
So since she set the digression, can I ask about? Is not our history in our search bars a public record that can be requested?
Good stuff.
it's kind of a gray area.
I would say that depends. I would argue that was somewhat deliberative process, kind of the process. There's a deliberative process exemption under PRA.
So,
I remember hearing someone who was asked.
I don't know. I mean,
It's an interesting question.
it's a question that I would go probably confident on either side if I was a lawyer arguing that in front of a judge, but I don't know how that would be resolved.
It's just one of the things you think about.
to touch on your question, public disclosure is different than an investigation. Now, search history and your internet history and all that stuff that's stored on company or agency equipment in the event of an event such as cybersecurity, an investigation would be started, and we would start pulling information to find out where you've been, what you've been looking at, all of your internet search history.
That's different than
So
the
it's-
context I was
yeah,
asking.
okay.
I hear you, and I knew that. I knew that you
But,
track it all on the back end, but
A public disclosure is typically like, what have you said in a chat bot? What
No.
emails?
No,
have
that's
you
not
said?
what I'm asking.
Okay.
That's
She's
not-
asking if your search term is a public record.
that's all. It's a very simple question. I knew, that's what I'm asking Matt. Because if, I'm online searching, I don't want to be giving examples. It's just something that I heard came up
Give
in
an
a,
example.
I heard it came up in a South King County city thing through an MRSC article or something I was reading.
So those are the sorts of cutting edge issues that we need refinement in the statute.
Yeah, I
But
think
we need a lot of refinement in that statute, Matt.
Oh, we can talk.
I'm happy to be on the
No,
record
I've got.
of my opinion of the public records statute.
Yeah.
so if we got a public records for search history, I'd be calling Matt right away.
Yeah.
Like, all right, what are we gonna do with this one? And then I think it would be the context of what that request was.
And especially because once you've done something, your search history becomes part of the Google,
It's a profiling, yeah.
and it's part of AI that starts sending you things via.
Well, just real world example. Chris put this thing on a PowerPoint. Look at that purple button up there.
Exactly,
I mean, that's
exactly.
right there, right?
So that's an example of Adobe Acrobat, and they are baking AI into Adobe products.
exactly.
So, and
A lot of our tools are baked in AI.
in the procedures, we're gonna be starting to kind of go through down, kind of a lockdown. So we're gonna be disabling certain AI features that aren't compliance ready and kind of like safeguarding and.
I can't go on a Zoom call
Without the transcript.
without somebody putting that out there. And
Yeah.
unless the entity hosting the Zoom call disabled that,
Yeah,
it's all out there now. So when I go on national Zoom calls or whatever. It's all there.
So, fun fact,
Chris, can I weigh in about the public records piece?
yeah,
As the public records officer for Island Transit, I would just like to say, public records are, just assume that anything you put in writing or anything you, that can be recorded, it will be a public record. There are a few exceptions, but make the assumption that anything can be a public record.
That you can make available. If you
Yeah.
notes in a meeting and you shred the notes and they're not available, they're not a public.
Well, I mean, I think part of where I'm thinking about I say chat GPT for AI, but about AI is in policy development, we often aren't required to turn over drafts. And so that is where, like, when we're like comp plan, right? When we're going round and round and trying to say, do we like this? Do we like this? Those drafts are not public records requestable. So well, you can request them, you're not gonna get it.
For working.
So then, working document. So then to me, AI is a working document because I'm asking, what this is how you.
That's what I was just talking about.
That's how I think about it.
But that's the one,
But
I mean, ultimately, it could be a court that makes that decision.
Well, let's have another county figure it out or entity figure it out. I think what you're saying is right, which is you should assume everything you do at work, someone's gonna see, right? I think that is the exact right approach to take. We own nothing here. The public owns everything here. But there are, and this is a little bit different because a lot of people don't sue over Island Transit policy where they do over county policy. But making sure that we're just not volunteering things in this process that really are work product of the organization and entity and that should still be protected. Because there's also an element of like, look, I don't want to be pointed to as transit and say they disclose everything. Let's say that the county's like, no, we're gonna protect work product, right? So that's just where I hear what you're saying and I'm probably on the losing end of modernity. I'm probably not being progressive enough, but I'm also like, well, I use it as a research tool, a what questions am I not asking tool to develop the product that is then ultimately signed off by humans.
yes,
To me, that final product is the public requestable piece.
yes.
I would ask the counselor and also the speaker, when I was briefed for the city, when I took on the city council job, the communications officer specifically said to me, anything that is recorded or put into writing is open records. And that, I mean, I'm not trying to stir up any issues, but I would say that if you work through a process and you have a record of it, then the way I understood it from a communications officer, that would be would need to be accessible. So it's a little different than what you were saying, Commissioner Johnson, but I mean, I'm open but I'm on the side of risk aversion, you know what I'm saying? So I try not to create stuff, but if it gets created, then it's searchable. Matt, what would you say on that?
Well, there's a definition in the statute of what a record is, and there's exemptions. So that's kind of two things. So you may have a record, but it may be exempt.
Okay.
it's like maybe sometime this year as a board training, we'll get a public record.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
mind it.
Oh, yeah, we record. I have one I give frequently, so.
So, public records is a big animal it's a whole topic in and of itself. So
We have one more question, I apologize.
Yeah.
Councilperson Singer, I think you had a question. No?
nope.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
We must have answered it in all of our wisdom.
So
Thank you.
the bottom line is we're gonna make sure the AI we use is compliant. So that anything that comes up in any of those disclosure requests, we can address if we need to. So beyond Claude, the policy also addresses tools like Microsoft 365 Copilot, which we are evaluating for a broader rollout. GitHub Copilot, which is approved for IT use and software development. The fun fact here is I've used GitHub Copilot, the AI coding assistant, to design our own application where I take all of our Claude data and download it and store it in on-premise SQL server, making it all searchable, and I can produce public records if that is requested of our chats. So I've started us out with compliance built in to the product we're already using in the pilot. Regardless of a policy in place to do so, I know that we need that in place.
Now, if you're using the Claude, so if you're using the Claude, and I own ChatGPT,
They talk.
and I public records request all your Claude chats to educate my ChatGPT, I wouldn't assume these companies are ethical, right? Like, if they can find out if you choose to use another type of AI and that one starts pulling ahead because more governments are using it or more people are using it or whatever, all you have to do is get those questions and load it into yours, and yours is just as smart as theirs,
So
right?
no, I follow you. And OpenAI,
Does that.
so OpenAI is not in the business of taking other AI chats and putting it back in their chatbot, because it's going to delude the intelligence of their AI.
But
So
what if you want to be the premier government AI solution? I would absolutely do that. And then I'd go to government and I'd start charging more money because I'm the government expert.
it's a little bit beyond just grabbing public records and doing that way.
Well, I think those companies need to hire me because I'm way ahead of them.
Anyway,
Everything back to Chris.
yes. So, OpenAI in the industry has had ethics issues, and Claude has arisen from or spawned from OpenAI originally because of those ethic concerns. So that is another reason why I picked Anthropic Claude, because they are a more ethical company. They're not willing to let the US government use their tool to automate weapons.
I want to use this company.
That is a real thing. Anyway, so the data that I've downloaded so far starts on January 19th of 2026. We have total messages of 10,021 messages in our Claude AI. I maintain about 50% of that total usage across 14 active users. On the control side, we're looking at blocking AI traffic on the firewall. And as I mentioned before, turning off AI assistance in products that we do not have a disclosure for. And then, it's preventing something called shadow AI. That's when people use AI without the approval from the agency. So what happens next? We've kind of talked about the timeline. So between now and July, I'd like you to jot down your questions, concerns, suggestions. There's no wrong concern or suggestion. For the sake of getting a good discussion in July, I would recommend June 19th, you get the questions to me, just directly to me. I can get the contact info to you guys. I would send out a group response to the board on June 26th with basically everybody's question, with all of our answers back. And the idea here is that we have a fruitful conversation in July and get any of the outstanding concerns addressed in July, so that when we come in August, we have a policy ready for board approval. Now, I want to make mention that if significant concerns are raised in July, we're not going to force a vote in August. We want everybody to be comfortable with this policy, and we're willing to take the time to make sure we do it right instead of forcing it through for an arbitrary date. So the one point I think I mentioned before is that once the policy is adopted, the functional and procedural part of this is handled in a separate IT maintained procedures document that allows the policy to stay at a high level so it doesn't change frequently, and it allows us to do all the procedural things for a technology that's rapidly changing, and we can keep ahead of the compliance needs of the regulations or anything that comes out. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions at this time. Or we can save them for July.
I just want to say great job.
Very
I want to credit Chris to having brought all of this to me, and he's been talking to me about it for months, and
Probably one of the first things I brought up.
It was, it was, and I think it's very wise as an agency that we are getting on the forefront and establishing those guardrails up front, and, I think you did a great job today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
And
Do any other entities have a AI policy? Does Cookville or Oak Harbor or Langley?
Yeah, we do, Community Transit does.
Community Transit does. We do
City
not.
of Seattle does.
Seattle does.
Yeah, I think Whatcom County has one.
I think it's locally.
in July, I'm gonna have our WISTIP, risk pool provider is actually coming to present us with an award. And while, their executive director is here, I'm gonna have him speak to what they've been designing at the risk pool. I believe they're using ChatGPT, but, this.
It's
Commissioner
gotta be
Johnson and I were
agnostic to the
discussing.
platform, because in technology, the platforms will change so fast,
They do.
right? So Anthropic is relatively new in this whole AI thing.
They're the biggest, yes.
And but you've got before them, you've got NVIDIA and you've got all these others that even going way back. So we have to have a policy that is platform agnostic
Yeah.
so that it can change with the technology that evolves. Not platform specific. I actually feel strongly about that because we see evolution and we need to not have to, when, you know, NVIDIA acquires Anthropic or whatever happens in the world, that we're not sitting there going, well, now what?
Yeah,
And
that's
having to constantly evolve our
and
policies.
quite literally how we've designed this. So in the procedural side, we approve
Or
AIs for
Microsoft or
use
whatever
and,
company.
yeah, and there's a review process that goes in place with that before we adopt AI.
So in response to Commissioner Johnson's question about the city of Oak Harbor, I mean, I would be interested in looking into that, but I don't have that information of their policy or our policy on it directly, but I'm sure there's work going on. Would you like me to find?
I was just curious.
Yeah.
And I think the risk pool question will answer some of it. I'm just
Yeah.
curious about what we're trying to mitigate, what risks we're trying to mitigate against, what successes we're trying to achieve from it. I mean, I appreciate that you're in the world of it. I use it in my personal life mostly, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to totally envision all the risks and what it is that we're concerned about, because I'm like, information is great, I guess, until you get misled with your information, and then maybe not great. But
I would raise one question, and that's whether Puget Sound Energy will ever ask us to, as a high utilizer of data using AI, if there's gonna be at some point incremental rate changes to address the utilization of AI and how, and whether we have an energy plan. As we converted to hybrid and looked at our energy matrix as our facilities and our fleet, we installed solar to augment our access to power and decrease the vulnerabilities and the costs. If we're gonna move into an AI world, there are those who are saying, because I sort of track this at NACO a little bit, there are those who are saying you should have an energy. I just sent you an article about it. That you should have an energy strategy in case eventually utilities may start charging high utilizers of data more, as perhaps they should, so that ratepayers in general, people who live in small businesses, don't have to offset the fact that you've got a major utilizer of AI.
So the AI we use is not gonna be in-house. We're not
I
increasing.
know, but
our
you're still
energy.
utilizing energy. The fact that it's not in-house doesn't mean that your search engine and everything you're doing isn't utilizing energy in the grid.
Yes, it's very accurate. Now, Skagit County has just put a moratorium on
Yeah, that's what-
large data centers for that specific reason.
exactly.
So that, I think, is a very important thing to bring up when we're talking regionally, but, for Island Transit, we're not gonna increase our power load, with using this, that, and I know that's deferring the energy use.
Yeah, if you are still a utilizer
Yeah,
of that
but
energy,
there's-
and eventually your especially your for-profit industry-led utility providers are gonna be saying, how am I gonna pay for this?
Yeah.
And they're gonna
So-
go after the high utilizers and the
My-
people using
My
data.
instinct tells me within the next 10 years, there's gonna be quantum computing, there's going to be light transistors instead of electron transistors. And the amount of data or the amount of power needed to run AI is gonna drastically drop. So as soon as the technology catches up with AI, then we're gonna see that start to come down. That's my gut and that's my really big hope because it does consume a lot of our resources.
There's also a conversation about negative environmental impact that has to do, again, I'm out of my depth now because I don't run with the fish crowd, but there's something to be said about the water that they use and how that water is recirculated, how it's disposed of. But the environmental community actually has major concerns around AI and what's happening. So even from a policy standpoint of our utilization, it might be a little hypocritical to say we want electric buses, but we're going to be AI, high utilizers of AI. I mean, if our concern is the environment, this is going the opposite direction.
Values.
Now, again,
That is true.
I'm all get the information and the environment will adapt typically, but I'm not in the majority of that thought process and I'm typically wrong about it. So I think that's just another policy thing we have to weigh is, you know, if we're gonna do this, then we can just get gas buses.
All right, on that note, we're going to move to our next agenda item. Oh, Frank had a comment.
I suggest we move to the next agenda item.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, our executive director, please enlighten us.
Few highlights on the executive director report. I'm very happy to announce that we have now selected our community advisory committee. We are announcing the formation of this. Our initial meeting occurred on May 27th. We had 7 members and 1 alternate in attendance. It was a great initial session and all the attendees are very excited to be there. We have great representation. Some of our attendees or our members include seniors, veterans, people with disabilities, transit dependent riders, fixed route riders, and paratransit riders. Our next meeting is scheduled for late June and will include a presentation from the consultants of the long range plan, as well as a review of the proposed draft for our annual update of the TDP, which will be coming to the board on July 10th. July is going to be a huge meeting. The other thing I'd like to just review, last year we did a new process with our transit development plan. So I wanted to lay out the timeline once again this year for the board and what to expect. So we will have a draft of the TDP and annual report to present to our CAC at the end of June, which opens our public comment process. A draft plan will also be distributed to the required agencies and posted to our website. That draft plan will be presented to the board at its July 10th meeting for discussion and input and presented to the IRTPO in July. Public comments will be considered and incorporated into the final draft for the August 7th board meeting review and public hearing. The board will be requested to accept the TDP with a summary of changes that we will present. So we'll bring to you a summary of public comment that we received and incorporated. And we will be requesting to finalize the report to submit it to WashDOT by the due date of September 1. So that's coming along very nicely. Our planning and outreach director, Brad, is handling that process. So thank you for that. And of course, Meg and Jeannie and Celine all had a hand in bringing the community advisory committee together and establish guidelines. So we're really excited to have a community. Under projects, our tree farm, I have a final document contract to sign on my desk. I just need to review. It has been vetted by legal with a proposed closing of the extinguishment for late June, early July. So that's moving along. Our fuel building, as of May 28th, Island County is in the 8th week of a 16-week permit review process. So I've been trying to push this project off the ground since I got here. We would love to see construction happen, of course, during these summer months. However, we are waiting on permitting. And like I said, we're in week 8 of 16.
Who has your permit?
Island County.
Do you know what department? Planning or public works? Planning. Planning.
I was hoping someone might.
I got
ask
it.
that. Thank you. All right. So the invitation to bid is currently being drafted so that we can move forward once we receive the go-ahead from Island County.
How many permits are you needing to get? Because
I think there's one permit, it's out for 4 other departments to review right now. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I can tell you. I can go in the public.
it's just one
Being reviewed by.
I'll just check on this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate the support on that.
Michelle's our contact and she's been great.
Michelle Ginn?
No, Michelle, Sanchez.
Permit tech?
Maybe
Is she government tech?
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Again,
We're on it. We are on it.
Excellent. As the
she's
last
asking.
The last sentence in my notes said this delay in permitting is likely to affect construction time. So thank you for the support.
Can I just out of kindness, say that it's not a delay, this process in permitting, because if you said it, if they told you it's a 16-week permit timeline and you're getting 8, it's not a delay.
They didn't tell us that up front, but when we followed up because we hadn't heard anything, now we're being told we're in the 8th week of a time frame that's now taking 12
And that,
16
and
weeks
we need to be better
process.
about communicating the permitting timelines.
Yeah.
Because, they are challenging.
So flashing signal.
But we are within state mandates.
Flashing signal on State Route 20 between Ryan's house and our base. We have a contract with WashDOT that is under review. It is a maintenance and operating agreement. We need to plug in the costs. WashDOT is waiting to give those to me. Of course, we have put out in our budget what I was willing to contribute, which was 50% of the flashing signal itself, and then $1,000 a year towards maintenance and operating should signals need to be replaced. We have the work tentatively scheduled to go in after the completion of World Cup. So we're excited to get that moving. See, I wanted to bring attention to outreach activities. I wanted to give some kudos to Brad, Celine, and team for all of the outreach that is taking place, not only for the September service change, which is another topic in July, but also for our long-range planning process. So if you note here, they are having at least 3 to 4 events every week. We have had some fabulous turnout. The Camino Center, Commissioner St. Clair and I were discussing yesterday. It's actually in this report from St. Clair. The event brought in about 45 attendees, and we've went about the outreach differently by, for example, I contacted Bonnie. Can I get that name right? Yeah. Okay, good. Bonnie, her and I, to find out, okay, when we do outreach on Camino, going to the library was only netting us a couple folks at a time. Well, after meeting with Bonnie, we talked about, they serve lunch 3 times a week and get 60 to 80 people. So we use that time frame to go and do our presentation. So it's about thinking out of the box, and I know I've really pushed the team. You guys have done a great job, so thank you for accommodating that. And other than that, on the back, you can see the meetings I've attended and the upcoming ones and board appointments. And with that, unless there's any questions.
So, Housing Advisory Board, we make the appointments to the Housing Advisory Board, and I haven't seen your name on anything. When did you apply for?
They just reached out to me.
Oh, okay.
They just reached out to me this week. I let them know I was interested. Emily,
Okay.
from
Okay,
the
great.
program. manager there, yeah, reached out. So, that's pending and probably an email with some like that.
Well, thank you for your interest.
You bet.
The FIFA thing,
Yes,
soccer, right?
yes.
Are we putting any, I might have missed this conversation when I was outside. Are we putting extra buses on the routes at the ferry docks to get potential travelers into the communities during that time period? Or are we just sticking with our same schedule?
That's a great question, and there's been a lot of planning amongst all of the agencies in the region. Brad is involved with our, what's called our NISTA group up north. And so there's identified fan zones where they've been given grant dollars to actually provide more service such as KidSAP. We were not identified here, so we have not adjusted our service.
But we have plenty of money. So I'm just curious.
That's another topic for you.
So I'm curious from a local economy standpoint, apparently we're getting all our ferries because these out of towners are coming here. So they're worthy of worship ferries. We aren't, but the out of towners are. So we're going to get all our ferries. And with the idea being that there's all this tourism, which, it's wait to be seen. But if that's true, what we don't want is a bunch of cars in the ferry line. What we want are people walking on, and then we can just move them around into the towns.
Yes.
What I will say is we will definitely monitor that if we need to put additional buses on.
Okay.
We have been told that we're not going to see it here. I don't know.
And they're
Okay.
projecting less than the 750,000.
A lot less.
A lot less than
Because
they
we got a soccer team we're at war with, right? Like, I don't know the strategy of that, but we did, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well,
but
it's interesting.
People coming to stay with us and
You do.
therefore instructing them to ride transit. And they come to the ferry and take the transit all the way to Cookville. I think we're crazy because they live in urban, but I said, this is Whidbey Island, this is the way we roll. So they're gonna take the ferry, or they're gonna take transit out.
The chambers are tracking this because they've been part of these FIFA meetings. And they are saying that Camino may get more impact because it's on the I-5 corridor. So you might want to talk to Jessica McCready and see if she has any information on that. Jessica McCready is the executive director of the Camino Chamber of Commerce. Just because we're right on the I-5 corridor.
Right. It's really interesting how they did this, and we had
Question.
them come and present in Olympia. And they gave money, for example, King County, of course, got a huge sum of funds to support additional transit service. They skipped over Skagit and gave a huge amount to Bellingham.
Yeah, because you could get to Bellingham without going through Skagit.
Well, that's yeah. So
And they didn't get in Pierce, they didn't go to Pierce, they went to the tribe.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, I didn't go to Pierce County, but to the tribe.
Well, I'm on team. If we need more buses, we have money to do it. I don't know if that is a general head nod.
I think the money is not the issue. I think it's drivers and vehicles available.
Yeah.
It's probably the issue. Would my maintenance and planning staff agree with that?
There's some flexibility, but generally, like deploying drivers, doing a work shift, that's done months in advance. To have something, if we find out in the middle of.
Driver on the.
I could, because I have a CDL, but.
My request is that we monitor, and if we're seeing a need that we need to meet and convert.
And I'll touch base with Liz on Monday, upon her return and let her know about that so that we try to maximize our flexibility.
We don't have our APCs in there yet, but they're getting installed, so we're excited to start tracking those numbers.
Craig, question, sir?
Yes, I wanted to know if the Community Advisory Committee members have names.
Me too.
They do.
I hope
Can
so.
we-
You have them.
They're not AI.
Celine's happy to provide those to you via email, Craig.
Can you send it to the
Perfect.
board?
Yes, we will send it for Gina.
Absolutely.
We'll get those out.
Yeah, just for the record, I want to support commerce, and so if we have a need for more buses to promote our businesses during these surge times, then do it. That's.
Okay.
Do you have a report, sir? Did I get that out of order? No? Okay.
Morning, everyone. Morning. The, unit report that covers the movement for May. Oh, there you go. We currently have 70 certified operators. We're changing up the way we report it as after our conversation. So we have 70 certified operators.
Good.
We have 6 in training, which brings us to 76 total operators. And they'll be scheduled to be certified by the end of July. Next one. We have 6 operators in training. We have 2 exits this month and 76 total operators, 70 fully certified. And again, 2 exits. And if you guys want to know specifics on the exits, again, please talk to the executive director. But overall, we're holding steady. When's the next class?
July 13th.
July 13th, which hopefully with the addition of that group will be at full capacity. And that's our goal. Get full capacity, more operators, to meet our demands and be on time.
That's exciting. It's very exciting.
Any questions?
Thank you for the good news.
Yeah, very good.
And Mr. Brad Windler, enlighten us, please. Wait. Just a moment.
Are we taking one down, passing it around?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was supposed to take one from each pile. Sorry.
No, there's a group of 3 there. So walking through our key performance indicators for the month. The first one here on the homepage is reviewing our number of operators. We've made some adjustments based on past comments. So the blue line at the top, that is our authorized budget strength for both islands. And then the fuchsia line that goes across is the line to the number of operators that we need to meet the bids that we have. So like right now, we need 54 full-time operators on Whidbey Island, and you combine that with Tomato, because this is both islands together, and we're at 67 is what we need, and we've got 67 operators.
Oh, and
So-
just a minute.
Yeah, and I knew that question was gonna come when he said that. So think about, we have folks on FMLA, we have vacations, have all that coverage that has to take place. So we're still running into, when I talk with my ops director, we still have issues with on-time performance as well as overtime to cover those gaps that are unpredictable.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah,
I
no,
knew-
good question, because I thought the same
I
thing.
know, I was
as soon
like,
as
wait
he
a
said
minute.
it.
Bill and I were just doing that. Like doing
So-
stuff over here, trying to figure it out.
What we can see from this chart is that, as we go through our bids, we have the number of operators either in green or blue. Pretty much, we've been able to meet what we need for operational service, but that doesn't mean that there aren't times, as Melinda pointed out, where you have FMLA, they still count as an operator, even though they're out of service. Vacations, those kind of things still can impact operations. So, next slide, please. This is our overall ridership. It is nice to see here in 2026 that we are steadily outpacing our 2025 ridership, and we certainly hope to see that continue as the months go through.
I like that.
Next slide, please. And we can look here that our efficiency has improved. As you compare 2025 in blue and 2026 in orange, the number of riders that we have per revenue mile is steadily creeping up. So that increase in ridership, even though we've added new service, for instance, around the base on the weekends, our efficiency is still going up because we are adding more and more riders beyond what we've added in service. So our efficiency is improving.
Thank you for that.
Yes. Next slide, please. So this is a summary slide for our mileage and hours comparing the 2 years. Just to give you the reference for, what we have consumed and performed for the year. Cost per rider, please, the next slide. So I wanted to explain this really quickly. There's for 2026, the first 4 lines there, or first 4 columns, I should say, those routes are in effect in 2026, but they were not in effect at this time. So as the board's requested last time, we switched this to a year to date for both 2025 and 2026 so that we have an apples to apples comparison. And at this time in 2025, those first 4 routes were not in service. So that's why you see a gap in 2025 versus those 4 routes, the Clinton commuter and the 3 Naval Air Station routes. So that's the difference there. And we expect to see the fairly high cost per rider to continue on the Naval Air Station routes. That's fairly normal with new service. New service usually takes between a year to 2 years to really see that ridership grow. Our biggest point of strength for ridership on the Naval Air Station routes has been on the weekends, actually. We're seeing about 30 riders per day for sailors who are wanting to get on and off base, to get over to the Naval Exchange, those kind of things. So we're starting to see some increase there, and we're seeing some steady increase, slow but steady increase on the weekday service.
Brad, what happened to Route 58 and Route 9? Why did those increase so much, do you think?
Route 58, that is a function of low ridership. So ridership year to date on that has been, I want to say it's like 100 or 150 less, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at the percentage compared year to date, that is lower ridership. That's significantly lower ridership, but the costs stay the same. Fixed route, I often say, is fixed cost.
Sure.
So when you have that little drop in ridership on the 58, your cost per rider then goes up. Even though our costs have stayed the same, we're not we didn't put out any additional service there, but that's what's happening with that jump.
It's that Cultus Bay. What's
Where's
the
Skagit Head.
Oh,
Skagit
Skagit.
Head.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that was in 2 years ago. Skagit route was an additional route a few years ago.
It underwent a change. It went to an on-demand zone in the middle of the day, but we still had our short commuter runs in the morning and in the afternoon. Yeah.
What is the standard time frame by which you set aside the time? Because you don't want to have the court to be like, oh, look, we're going to stop serving the base because it's too expensive. That you don't do that. You don't pivot like that. What's the time frame by which transit in general looks at routes, and how much time do you give them to become balanced? And then I'm going to add a follow-up question to that before you answer, because I see you ready. And then my follow-up is, in any transit system, I assume there are always lost leaders that you invest in because they're the right thing to do for a particular area or population to be served.
So in answer to the first question, we do a very long outreach process. So for example, in looking at 58 and on demand and what we want to do there, we are currently having that as part of our long range planning process. So let's say we're taking that from phase 1 of engagement, which started in March, that goes all the way up to our next March service change. So we're gathering information about that area and who wants that service. But the service change that happens, such as at the Navy base, takes 12 to 18 months to really identify.
So we have a year, let's say, of implementation analysis, then we implement.
Yes.
And then we allow 18 months minimum for that route to stabilize
Correct.
and give us more accurate.
And with the
utilization data.
APCs, our data is gonna be, so much better.
APC.
Automatic passenger counters, and that project that you.
I know, but I don't remember every acronym and everything.
Sorry.
And then the second question, sometimes you keep a route even when it costs you money because of whatever the board decides is mission centric.
Yeah, and I think that really plays into our board retreat and our workshops about what are we looking for in long range plan? Are we looking for more coverage or more productivity? Thank you.
And I would add, for the Navy, the weekday service, a lot of times we're trying to get people from base housing on. That's something that'll take place over time. You know, right now, the people who live there, they've already bought a car. They bought that second commuting car. They're doing their habit. As sailors rotate in and out and you get new families that move in and they see this as an option, especially with the pay level that they're at, some of them may opt to forego that second car payment and that expense and be like, well,
We better get to them early then, because they turn over every 2 years.
yeah, we're in indoctrination. So that's our hope, is that we can get in there and see that grow over time.
Oh, Brett, can you talk for a second about the Clinton commuter route? It looks like it must be very successful.
It is fairly successful. But it's also very limited in scope. So it's about 4 hours in the afternoon. Most of these other routes are operating, a majority of the day. So that keeps our expenses low. And it is benefiting from the 1 and the 60. So those guys in the afternoon, those two routes are running on a schedule and they don't necessarily wait for the riders anymore because the Clinton commuter is there. So the Clinton commuter gets to pick up a lot of their riders.
Okay.
So it comes out looking pretty good though.
Is there an industry standard or analysis done of cost per rider in rural transit systems? So I don't want to compare against an urban area. I'm not interested in that. But in rural areas where there's transit service, do we know how our cost per rider compares to those areas?
Ma'am?
Well, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm thinking about, this was a great example of something that was just brought up in Elk Harbor about the cost. So we have National Transit Database, NTD data, but it's reported 2 years behind.
Okay.
And when it was presented just recently at Oak Harbor, what I noticed was that it was 2023 data, but they had our rural agency, and this is the National Transit Database that I can't control, comparing it with tribal service.
That won't work.
And so, one of my questions as I get more into this is we need more lifetime comparators.
Right.
But there is the ability to compare within that database.
I will say that chart that was sent to us, back when that was done, the average of the agencies that were represented there were $53 per trip, and we were underneath that.
Okay.
We were at like $36.
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you. Yeah.
That's great.
We were here.
Well, and go back, sorry, just one real quick, because the Route 1, which is right here, and it shows this really low 792, and you think it's just one route, but that is almost a third of our ridership is represented right here.
Yeah.
On one of the lowest ones. So when you look at our overall average, that's where it really pulls down our, that's the backbone of our service right there. And then finally, year to date for 2026. So this one, you had asked us last month to do year to date against both, and it's a little challenging to do year to date back in previous data. So 2025 is for the year, but year to date for 2026, we're holding steady. So we are meeting the exact very similar trends. Our on-time performance in 2025 for the year was 91.24, and we're holding pretty steady at 91.12. Our performance is pretty even between the years. But it was proving problematic to try to go back in some of the old data and calculate the same year to year. we weren't giving you an apples to apples comparison per se. So we ended up staying with this. And that's what I have for key performance indicators.
Thank you for doing the revisions based on the suggestions that have come up the last couple of months.
I think there was, we have an executive session, but there was, a conversation that I had in one of my one-on-ones, and I see Craig has his hand up. We wanted to talk about the upcoming service change that will be presented in July, but the frequency of service down at the Clinton, Ferry Dock.
Thank you, Melinda. I was going to ask Brad about that planning and to quickly educate the board about what you're considering in terms of the Clinton connector versus the changes to the timing of the number 1 and the number 60.
Okay. So we have been doing some public outreach recently. You may have heard from constituents, with some questions about what we have proposed. And what has driven this proposed change is very early on in the long range transit plan in our outreach, we heard two things: that people are still not satisfied with commuter service, and that our service as a whole needs to upgrade our frequency. And so planning staff took a look at that and said, okay, how can, what can we do about this? Because it really spikes to the top of the list of what we were getting for public outreach. And so we came up with some ideas that would improve frequency on the routes 1 and the route 60 and on the 58 as well. Now the route 1 runs from Oak Harbor and connects with every single route that we operate on Whidbey Island. So it's not just a south end improvement. And so what we looked at with our current resources, we have 2 new buses that will be coming in August that are going to be Gilligs. They're expansion vehicles that will also help make this service expansion happen, so that there will be an expansion in the number of drivers and the number of vehicles. But we're proposing to take both the 60 and the 1 from 60-minute service to 30-minute service. And then we're looking at a couple of options. One is just in the commute periods. So early morning and then in the afternoon, or mid-afternoon to early evening, or all day. And now the 1, and once you speed them up, we're going to offset them. So the route 1 would, let's say, leave from on the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour from the Clinton Ferry Dock, and then the route 60 would leave at 15 and 45. So the big complaint that we've always had with meeting the ferry service is, well, what about when my ferry's late? Will you hold buses? Will you not hold buses? How do we get around that? With this service scenario, what we'll have is then a bus that every 15 minutes is going past the park and rides down into the ferry dock. And every 15 minutes, we've got one coming up the hill to visit the park and rides. So it doesn't matter if the ferry is a few minutes behind or if it's on schedule, we've got frequent service that's going to meet the commuters coming off of the ferry. And so then we're not trying to play the guessing game with, did the orcas stop the ferry this afternoon and throw our schedule off? So there's that benefit to it. That also speeds up service through Langley. And with the service on the with the service on the 60, there were some gaps in the middle of the day where we were able to actually double the number of trips on the Route 58 on the south end. So right now there's 5 trips in the commuter period. We would add 5 trips midday on the 58. And we would not discontinue zone 58. That would continue. We would operate them in parallel, and then we will perhaps see how these 2 services and what the citizens choose to utilize over time. Then the Route 1 would be going up and down the island every 30 minutes. And that would massively increase service up and down the island.
But again, this is at peak service times.
It could be at peak, or it could be all day. That's what we've gone. We haven't developed a recommendation to take to the board in July yet.
May I speak to that?
Is that the memo I have in my?
Yes, ma'am.
Just, may I speak to that briefly? I'm in favor of, an incremental approach to determine the efficiency of what blocks of time the increase in services. But I'm just instinctively, I'm saying, you know, just a blanket sweep of increasing it across the entire service period of time that we're on the road. That doesn't sound efficient initially. So I'm not saying that we're coming to describe to you, I think a stepwise process in phases would probably be better, wiser, but that's just a take on.
I'm not gonna jump ahead to the July discussion yet, but I just was asked to give an overview of what we have proposed.
Okay.
Another question as well.
So thank you, Brad, for that discussion. It's a relief to hear that the removal of the Clinton connector is going to be replaced sort of one by one with kind of a unique service that you've come up with. One thing I would say is, and this is a truly in the trenches comment, and I think you just gave like quarter of the hour and, you know, quarter after the hour as an example, but the ferry usually arrives after the, you know, the quarter hours. So I would suggest making it, you know, 20 minutes after the hour and 50 minutes after the hour, and just move things 5 minutes there. You'll definitely pick up more riders.
Any other additional questions on KPI or the September service?
Thank you.
But thank you for the.
Thank you, Brad.
At this time, we're gonna go into executive session. So I would invite those that are in the room, that don't need to be part of that to not be. And Jeannie, will you be putting everybody but Leela in and Craig? Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think I see everybody. Okay, we are back from our executive session and no action was taken. We are other business or board member comments, questions, feedback.
Yes.
Craig, yes, sir.
So a lot going on in Langley that could potentially affect Island Transit. Yesterday, the new pilot ferry service known as the Harbor Hopper started running between Everett directly to Langley. And this is a pilot program partnership between the South Whidbey Port and the Everett Port, and it's supported by Whidbeytel as a sponsor. It will run on Thursdays and Saturdays. And if you're interested in writing it, you can get the schedule and ticketing information on both of the port websites. If this is successful, potentially there'll be an impact to Island Transit in terms of our service trying to meet those arrivals and departures at the harbor. Parking is a major issue in Langley, and so we're very interested in this program. And if it's successful, Island Transit can help us deal with the parking issues. The next thing is the Langley infrastructure project is nearly completed. The final paving of the main roadways on 6th Street, Al Anderson, and Island View is complete. There's some remaining work to be done on the shoulder of 6th Street, installation of traffic signs, etc. The striping that will establish the edge lane road design will be applied on 6th in approximately a month when the new pavement has cured. Route planners at Island Transit should be on the lookout for these changes in their timing, and operations will want to train drivers on best practices when driving on the edge lane. Langley received an application from the developer of Coles Valley. It's an amended application, and it will increase the number of approved lots from the current 24 to 85 lots, with 15% of the development required for workforce housing. An interesting development is that Habitat for Humanity is considering acquiring the 40-acre property from the developer to build 100% workforce housing. Every single dwelling there would be a Habitat for Humanity property. The developer and Habitat have a contract, and just Langley's very excited about it. this is like a 5-year timeline, probably 4 to 5 years, just to guess. And again, that is on Coles Road. It could affect the routing. I also, on another topic, I would invite everyone to a celebration of the construction completion of the Generations Place housing development next Tuesday, starting at 3:30 p.m. We expect a lot of elected officials there. I invite every one of you listening to me to come. It's going to be a joyful celebration when we see Island Roots Housing giving tours of the new structures, new dwellings. So I really hope to see as many of you there as possible. And then finally, I wish the camera were on Melinda Adams. Maybe she could say hello just briefly.
Hello.
Oh, it's not going well. Anyway,
It's moving
Melinda Adams,
very
happy
slowly.
birthday to you.
Oh,
It's your birthday?
tomorrow.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
How'd you know that?
I just know stuff.
I guess.
No one, by the way, no one at the agency told me.
Thank you.
Any other? Okay, well, I don't have anything else on the agenda. Just a quick reminder for the board to get their questions about the AI governance to Chris, who will send how he wants to send over to him by the 19th. So that he can kind of compile all that and then get it to us so that we can review it before the July meeting and be ready for discussion. And there's not going to be any going back and forth. He's just going to take all of it and compile it and send it over with answers. And if there are no other questions, comments,
Next meeting.
next meeting will probably go long as well.
I'll keep it as short as I can.
I don't think you're the problem.
I'll keep my part.
With that, we are adjourned. Thank you for being with us today, everyone.